Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how markets use resources efficiently and how countries decide what to produce and trade. First, I'll explain the difference between productive efficiency and allocative efficiency, which are both about using resources wisely, but in slightly different ways. Then I'll move on to absolute and comparative advantage and show how those ideas explain why countries specialize and trade with each other. Let's start with productive efficiency. Productive efficiency means producing goods at the lowest possible cost while using all available resources. In other words, nothing is being wasted. On a production possibilities curve, any point on the curve represents productive efficiency because the economy is using all of its resources fully. But if the economy is operating at a point inside the curve, that means resources are being underused. Maybe there's unemployment, or factories aren't operating at full capacity. The economy could be producing more, but it's not. That's productive inefficiency. Now, allocative efficiency is a little different. Instead of focusing on how much we produce, allocative efficiency focuses on whether we're producing the right things, the combination of goods and services that society actually wants most. In a market, allocative efficiency happens where supply and demand intersect. That's the point where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. At that point, the value consumers place on the good is exactly equal to the cost of producing it. That means we're not overproducing or underproducing, we're producing the socially optimal amount. Next, let's talk about absolute and comparative advantage. Absolute advantage is pretty straightforward. If a country can produce more of a good using the same amount of resources, it has an absolute advantage. It's simply more productive. Comparative advantage is more about opportunity cost. A country has a comparative advantage in producing a good if it gives up less of another good to produce it. Even if one country has an absolute advantage in everything, trade can still benefit both countries because comparative advantage is what really determines specialization. Let's look at an example. Country A can produce 10 cars or 5 computers. Country B can produce 6 cars or 4 computers. Country A has an absolute advantage in both goods because it can produce more of each. But when we calculate opportunity cost, things change. For Country A, producing 1 car costs 0.5 computers. For Country B, producing 1 car costs about 0.67 computers. Since Country A gives up less to produce cars, it has a comparative advantage in cars. That means Country B must have a comparative advantage in computers. So if Country A specializes in cars and Country B specializes in computers and they trade, both countries can end up with more than they could produce on their own. So when we look back at that example of Country A and Country B, it really shows how these ideas connect in real life. Economies aren't just trying to produce more, they're trying to produce efficiently and make smart choices about what to specialize in. Productive efficiency helps an economy avoid waste. Allocative efficiency makes sure the goods being produced are actually what people value most. And comparative advantage explains why even countries that are stronger overall still benefit from trade. In the end, economics is really about decision-making, how to use limited resources in the smartest way possible. And these concepts help explain how both markets and countries try to do exactly that.